So this is a newer friend to Nancy and I. We have Cory Henwood with us from Utah, and he is going to talk to us about engagement at his school and a lot of unique pieces of his school. And so we had hoped to have Cory speaking for us at Leading Schools last year, and that did not happen. So we're really thrilled to introduce him to you all today. And with that, I will pass it over to Cory.
All right, folks. Well, hey, I'm Cory Henwood. I'm excited to be with you today. I am an innovation director at our school district, but I'm also a school leader, founder at Launch High School and our online schools in Cedar City, Utah. I come from Nova Scotia, Canada, so that is my home. I have not been back there for some time. Of course, with COVID and whatnot, I look forward to getting back there. Goodness, what a year this has been. You know, what a year. Being an educator has never been so overwhelming. And that includes our school and district leaders, where they've seemingly always been putting out fires, but this has never felt so real as it has this year. Everything is on fire, right? So I don't know about you, but I'm ready to move on. I'm not talking about getting back to normal. That return to normal is not really what I'm looking for. Instead, what I'm looking for is to figure out how we can move beyond this pandemic to a new, better, right? There were systemic issues throughout education, the old normal, that I don't long to get back to. So how do we move on from what we've learned? How do we move from BC to AD? Are you guys seeing my full screen, by the way? Just to be clear. Okay. BC to AD, what I mean by that is from before coronavirus to after disease. We have a choice right now. If we want to reassemble the old system, reinstate the things we left behind from last year, should we refocus on mile-wide, inch-deep Googleable curriculum, high-stakes standardized test scores, instructional minutes that are fixed for everyone, or pacing guides? I mean, or instead of return to that old normal, can we build a new, better? Even now, amid a global pandemic, great teachers are taking this opportunity to really focus their classroom, not just on engaging students. And we've talked about engaging today, and I love that. But there is a difference between engaging and empowering your students, right? Engaging them often refers to pulling them into our content and our interests and our curriculum. But I think we can do more. I think we can empower students, give them the skills and the ability they need to pursue their passions and their interests. Right. And so one thing that's been obvious, and that is key to this empowering type of education I'm talking about, has been relationships. And both those who've spoken before me have really hit on this. The impact on mentoring relationships on student success is key. And isn't that why you got into education in the first place? I mean, really, I know it was for me. I became a teacher. I think back to where I grew up in Nova Scotia, Canada. My 7th grade math teacher told me every day that I was smart and I had limitless potential. And it was nice growing up in Nova Scotia, Canada, where my mother was my 7th grade math teacher. And, you know, that's the thing, whether we are educators or parents, we have the power to empower people. And really, many of us became educators to connect with students, to help and to mentor them. And secondly, many great teachers are taking the opportunity to personalize education for students this year, right? To offer flexibility, different pathways, allowing students to explore their interests, being flexible around the pace that students take as they progress. There are a lot of great things about personalized, maybe online, maybe remote, but personalized anytime, anywhere learning. But if it comes without the opportunities to engage and connect with a caring mentor, then you know all well that learning takes a nosedive, right? So likewise, we should offer personalized support as school and district leaders. We should offer personalized support and learning opportunities for teachers, from job-embedded coaching to teachers having to work through things like micro-credentials or other offerings for personalized professional development. These increasing teacher mentorship and personalized support for educators as they move to personalized education for students. In Iron County School District, we've developed a series of micro-credentials, which instead of basically paying for substitutes to come in, for pulling teachers out of class, for one size fits all PD. We've offered them some choice aligned with our vision to choose an area that they want to explore, to plan and develop and implement that and reflect on it. And when they submit that evidence, they earn a few $100s to validate their time. And what a much better and more empowering model for educators if you think to support them with choice and with caring mentorship. So one of the other things we must do to continue to support our educators is to continue to encourage them to focus beyond the simple curriculum and the pacing guides and these other things that have kind of been, knocked into them for so long. And many of the great teachers now are focusing beyond that to meet the needs of students and give them the skills they need to be successful. Now, those skills aren't recalling facts or being able to compute something that they can do easily on their computer or phone. They're essential transferable skills, both social and emotional skills, interpersonal and interpersonal human skills. And so we asked in our community, asked our parents, our community leaders, business leaders, post-secondary educators, what are the skills students need to be successful in their future? And they came up with these essential 8 skills. We call this Iron Essential 8. It's part of our profile of a graduate. Now, when practicing and developing these skills, even alongside routine curriculum, it makes it so much more meaningful and memorable. And we know that building these skills now is needed more than ever. And so the purpose of school is to help prepare students for their future. So what are great teachers doing now? They're doing just that, beyond just ensuring college and career readiness, beyond that, really beyond just preparing students for something, preparing them for anything, preparing them not just to make a living, but preparing them to make a life. These are the skills that our teachers are focused on right now. And we need to continue to allow them that work to focus on those things instead of beating up the pacing guide and the curriculum, right, as school and district leaders. So think about how you support teachers. Do you support them in not just making a living and being a professional, but making a life? Do you care enough to help them develop social and emotional wellness and a balance to truly make a life for themselves? I mean, so many of our wonderful educators, bless their heart, they're so passionate, but balance, not always their strength. And ultimately, many of them burn out, right? As a leader, you can provide supports that help them, such as, a mental wellness day. Maybe it's some mindfulness training or yoga. Will you maybe limit what you ask of them and respect heaven, respect their contract time, right? When you add duties to them, take others away. Think about what's most essential and focus on that. Teachers need more TLC now and less required PD. Helping them to make a life is not only more of a delightful way to operate as an administrator, it's also way more effective than wearing your teachers down to the bone. It just is. So think back to that and think back also to how we work with students in this manner. Is this what we're doing, preparing them to make a life? Because some of us stress, especially this time of year, so much around things like standardized test scores, right? And this is one of the things I want you to think about. High stakes nature of these tests has driven so much of our previous efforts in education and the work that's assigned to students. Ultimately, there's a common saying, right? If it's not tested, it's not taught. And that's a shame. For those teachers who feel under the gun regarding this issue, that's how they operate. And luckily, these things for both students and teachers are becoming less and less the gatekeeper to make or break a lifetime of opportunity. And I'm grateful for that, because most of what is on these tests are routine skills that are easily scored by machines. And the irony here is that if it can be scored by a machine today, it can be automated by a machine tomorrow. And so what are we doing? We're not preparing students for their life by preparing them for these tests. And these aren't great indicators that you're doing things right. But what will not be automated are those essential skills, those human skills we talked about. And those can be, luckily, not entirely separate from what we do in academics. They can be integrated into what we teach, the academic standards we teach. We can go deeper into what we teach, combining instruction with the chances to develop these essential skills. And as a school leader, you can exhibit these types of things and really promote a school-wide vision for developing these transferable skills. Some of the things we've done in Iron County School District and Launch High School Include exhibitions of these learning from entrepreneurial events like Shark Tanks or TEDx style events, student maker fairs, or student film festivals. These are the types of events and exhibitions that allow you as a school leader to put on the best face that you can to the public and not just simply rely on what is on your school report card and your standardized test scores that go out to the public, but show them what really matters, right? And so beyond that, we also use at Launch High School, we use the mastery transcript, which helps to highlight holistically the skills that students have learned in those essential areas that we talked about earlier and highlight a portfolio of evidence. Now, this is so much more meaningful than a simple one numeral GPA score or letter grade. This is the type of results that we want to share with our post-secondary partners to get to know our students in their selection process. So how can you do all this? How can you take and simultaneously help students to find their passions and apply their learning and learn the skills that they need to be successful to make changes for the world for good? Well, there's no silver bullet to empowering students in this work, but at Launch High School, I'll tell you a couple of things we found. We've co-designed design challenges to work as projects for our students to help students apply their learning, learn essential skills, and to solve real problems. And that's empowering for students. It really is. And it's also empowering for our teachers. It strikes the right balance for them between teaching, mentoring, and preparing students for life. So some of those examples, if you're curious, include some of these things that our students have co-designed with our teachers, right? In biology, they're looking at something, if a student's passionate about hunting and the outdoors, they look at designing solutions for hunters that are inspired by the properties of animals that they're studying, or designing solutions in our English and social studies classes for combating fake news, hate speech, other inappropriate online sharing, but also respecting the First Amendment to the Constitution. So designing solutions for these things brings in that real world element, that authentic assessment piece, and empowers our students to take on things that they are passionate about and they will find engaging ultimately, right? Students begin to take ownership over this in their own learning in these design projects. And some of these same principles for designing with and not just for people bring about more ownership in what we do as school and district leaders, working alongside teachers and parents. Educators in our district, nearly in every decision we make in our district, includes a design team of teachers and parents to help design the needs for all stakeholders when we make these decisions, and use that process to navigate difficult undertakings like standards-based grading that we took on as a district this last couple of years, and our new opening of our competency-based high school at Launch High School. So we've got a design challenge in front of us right now. Are we designing or maybe redesigning our schools for students' futures? Or are we still designing them based on the nostalgia of our past? So this is something you need to think about. How do we redesign and retool school to focus on what's most important to us, to incorporate what we've learned through this pandemic and why we got into teaching in the first place? This is our design challenge. Let's not go back to the traditional focus of calculations that a computer can do for us, or goodies we can Google in our curriculum, or the equivalent of bubble sheets in our standardized assessments that are stressful and are not really great indicators of students' future success. And a one-size-fits-all approach, right, in terms of pacing and personalization. It's just not there. Are we going to go back to that? Unfortunately, if we didn't know this before, that this was broken in our traditional focus, COVID has made that even more clear. Think about how people have shifted towards taking that routine Googleable curriculum and putting it online through videos or whatever else, okay? Or simply focusing on the same type of assessments that we've already done in a virtual environment, right? Is this a good indicator of where students are at? No, but this transition from taking a traditional model and moving it into remote or computer-centric instruction just doesn't work. We also see that with the hanging of our heads when we talk about Zoom school. Heaven, right? We can't be doing this for hours of one-size-fits-all synchronous instruction. We just can't. And if you think that this is the pathway forward, then I think our day of reckoning is coming. It brings to mind this quote from General Shinseki of the US Army. If you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less. If all we are as educators is content delivery mechanisms and assessing memory, then we will be replaced by machines. So in order to avoid the tragic automation of education that we're seeing here, we need to take a different approach, right? We need to focus more on those essential skills, those skills that are going to help prepare both students and teachers to make a balanced life. So can we lead as leaders and talk about focus on those things? Can we lead in helping our students and our teachers to co-design problems or co-design solutions to real problems that we face, right? Can we do that? And can we also seek to personalize the supports we have for both teachers and students? Personalize the supports, offer personal mentors, flexibility and choice, voice and path, and even pace for our students and our teachers as they take on new learning. This can be our future focus. So to wrap up, it brings me back to where I grew up in rural Nova Scotia, Canada. There's this phenomenon, it's called the tidal bore. So outside my window where I grew up was the Bay of Fundy, had the highest tides in the world. And when that bay comes in, it creates this phenomenon called the tidal bore, where it creates these huge waves in the Shubenacadie River. Now, what happens there is people come from all over to try to ride the waves in the river. And you know, this is exciting times, and I just want to make this analogy, right? When people come to ride the waves in the river, they either come, ride the waves and make the fun happen, or B, they sit on the shoreline and they poke fun at those who eat it, right? Or they are renting their gear in the clubhouse and it happens so fast that they come out and they totally miss it and they go, what happened? So the analogy here is, with changing happening so fast in education, are you going to be the one to ride the waves, steer the ship, and make things happen? Or are you going to stand on the shoreline and poke fun at efforts to innovate? Or will you have your head in the sand for the next couple of years and come out looking like what happened to education that I knew, right? Now, these are exciting times, but going alone could be scary. So I want to encourage you to ride confidently into the future. You'll need all hands on deck. Thank you.